And so we believe very, very firmly that anyone can be an entrepreneur.
If you just bought and held the top 10 stocks from today and you held them for 10 years, I guarantee you'd more than double your money in the 10 years.
Wow.
Hello, welcome to another School for Startups Radio Wealth Within update. My name is Jim Beach, and I'm excited to welcome Dale Gillham to the show. He is Australia's #1 guy, and he's here today to share some insight and wealth with us. Dale, welcome. Good to see you again. How you doing this week?
I'm very good, Jim. I'm actually a little bit disappointed that both of us got the market wrong last week. We both thought the market would take a bit of a dive for what was going on with reporting season and a few other things, but it really was only down 17 points. It closed down at 26,770, but that said, Friday did, I think it was a quite 1% drop. So basically what it did from Mondays, it rose 1%, and then Friday it dropped the other 1%. So to pretty much end up even for the week. But so a little bit disappointed we got it right after being so wrong, after being so right so many weeks in a row. So but ruined my good reputation.
Well, we were right. It did go down. We just missed the scale a little bit, but still. You were right, though, Dale. For months now, you predicted a market that goes sideways, and that's certainly what we saw last week. Even with all of the earnings data, nothing much seemed to happen.
No.
Quiet week.
Yeah, it was a bit of a quiet week. I mean, it has been going sideways for quite some time. In fact, since January 2018, and I know people have watched, obviously we're recording a video of this, which is going on my YouTube channel. For people watching the recording, they would have seen how the Dow's really only gone up a couple of percent in 2 years, which is part of the reason why I'm really confident the Dow's not going to crash. But it is interesting how the rhetoric has been changing the last week or so on the Dow. Now, I remember chatting to you this time last year, and it was all doom and gloom, markets crashing. A whole range of different media outlets were just predicting an economic meltdown on the US market, recessions. And yet the last few weeks or so, it's all changing. It's all about, hey, the Dow can't crash. You're not going into a recession. Unemployment figures are the best they've been in such a long time. So whilst there's still a few negatives on the market, it's still looking good. That's it. I still think we've got to go, the Dow will go down. I still think it's going to go down in the next few weeks. And I still think it'll probably go below 25,200 odd points, down to around about around 24,500 points. So I think that'll happen in the next few weeks, maybe 2 to 4 weeks, and then everything will start to move again.
All right, so let's go into some of the specific things that happened this week. Retail numbers came out. They were down a tiny bit, but not too badly.
No, the September retail sales were down about 0.3%, or 0.3%, sorry, even less than that, which is the first time in about 7 months that we've seen a decline in this area. So, but I really think that it's really short term. I mean, in terms of that retail, it was up the month before. So it's really, unless it happens for 3 or 4 months, then I'd start to get worried. But right now, I just think it's an effect of what's happening in the marketplace. But it could be just the US-China trade war type things. It could be doing that, or sometimes it's also seasonal changes. I know in Australia, September is always a pretty poor month in Australia for retail. People gearing up for Christmas time to spend all their money moving into Christmas to get presents. So September tends, and also in September in Australia, there's a lot of sporting events like our Super Bowl. So a lot of people got their minds everywhere else, but I'm not sure what happens in the US on that respect.
Well, I think we get distracted the same way for sure. What about some of the earnings reports that came out this week? It seemed again that even the bad ones didn't seem to have much impact, but there weren't that many bad ones, but the good ones didn't seem to weigh that heavily on the market either.
No, they didn't. It was pretty good. I mean, earnings season hasn't been any sort of drama up till this point in time. Obviously, we've still got a few more weeks to go of earnings season, but Procter & Gamble reported on Tuesday, and it really is currently doing well. It's up 29% in 2019, and it's just one of those consumer staples that are doing well. There's quite a few consumer staple stocks that are doing really well, and that shows that there's strong consumer confidence in the market. Now, whilst retail sales were down in September, as I said, they're up in August, so there's nothing really to be concerned about because that consumer sentiment is on high. But McDonald's reported on Tuesday as well, or last Tuesday, and it was currently up 19% for the year. Now the Dow is up around about 19% for the year, for the calendar year from 1 January, so it's running in line with the market. Microsoft, Boeing, and Tesla and Ford, they all report this Wednesday, so it'll be interesting to see what they're doing, because remember, car sales were down in September, so it'll be really interesting to see what those companies are reporting, being Tesla and Ford. But I think Microsoft will give you a good report, and I think Boeing, the dust has hit the fan, so to speak, from Boeing, and I think there'll probably be some positive news out there after the issues that Boeing have had in the last 12 months. But Thursday we've got 3M and Amazon and Intel all reporting, so I think they're going to be reasonably good reports. I think Intel will be a great report. I like that sort of chip manufacturer sector on the market at this point in time. So, but just talking about last week, Coca-Cola was a great report last week, and it was ahead of analyst expectations. American Express also beat analyst expectations, and in the finance area, because last week there was a few finance stocks reporting. JP Morgan, Bank of America, they reported solid results, so everything looking really good so far.
I did hear something differently about Boeing, though, Dale. I heard late Friday afternoon that a text message had come out, two-year-old text message from a Boeing executive admitting that they did not know how to fix the problem, and this was well before the crashes. And I heard that was perhaps bringing the Dow down 100 points, just the Boeing data itself. Have you heard anything about Boeing, and what are your thoughts on something this is now they're talking criminal indictments for executives now.
Yeah, I haven't really heard much about it, but one stock doesn't make the whole marketplace. So the Dow's 30 stocks, so if Boeing falls heavily, it's not going to bring the whole market down hugely. Boeing is big, but it's not going to do that. And I think the market's really factored in a lot of the proverbial hitting the fan, so to speak. And it's like anything, with the banks, after the GFC, we continually heard more and more things coming out about what was going on prior to the crash with the GFC. So I think this is just another one of those things, and it really is the big end of town. They'd know all this sort of stuff was going to come out, so I don't think it's probably going to be a bit more of a storm in a teacup, I would suggest, but I wouldn't discount it, but I wouldn't be owing Boeing right now either.
Would you get on a new Boeing airplane right now?
I have. I was actually on a Boeing 737 only 2 weeks ago. So when I flew from Australia to the Philippines and back, beautiful plane. And so, it's far safer, especially in Australia, to fly than it is to go swimming with crocodiles or sharks. So, but yeah, flying on an aeroplane is far safer than driving in a car too. So to me, Boeing is a great company. Yes, it had an issue. Yes, they didn't fix the issue. And I would suggest that there'll be fines coming up. There'll also be possibly be some legal action against some of its executives. But anybody in the big end of town would already know that sort of stuff. They'd be expecting it. And that's really what I was suggesting before, is it's about, my mum always said to me, Dale, it's not what happens, it's how you handle it. And as a fund manager, if I'm a fund manager looking after billions of dollars, I need to understand what Boeing's doing if that's one of the companies that I hold in my fund, and I need to prepare for what might happen. And that's part of my job as a fund manager here in Australia. I need to make sure I'm always prepared no matter what happens, so that our clients achieve better returns and they can sleep at night and have less stress.
Did you hear about the new Qantas flight, direct New York to Sydney, 19 and a half hours, 3 sets of pilots, 3 sets of flight crew, attendants and everything? I can't imagine that. I think that I would rather have the layover in Honolulu. What are your thoughts on that, Dale? You're a world traveler. 19 hours for you?
Yeah, I think it's probably a bit long. But then, to me, when I flew back from the Philippines, I was on a tropical island in the Philippines, and it took me 20 hours to get home. There was three flights involved in that, one from the island to the Manila, one from Manila to Sydney, then Sydney to Melbourne, where I actually live. So 20 hours flying for me is normal. Last time I went to LA, it was 18 hours. So, and that was on a Dreamliner with Qantas, and it was just beautiful. It was lie-down seats in business class, fell asleep. They looked after me very, very well. I can't say enough about Qantas. They do look after us very, very well. So to me, 19 and a half hours, a little bit longer. I don't think I'd rather do that. I'd love to have a layover as well, because I'd like to see new places too. So I'd love to go to Honolulu and have a layover, or somewhere else.
All right. Let's summarize the market for this week. What do we see? More sideways? Big news? What do you think?
Well, I think we should stick with our guns and saying it's going to go down. I think we stick with our guns because I think it's going to happen soon. And sometimes the timing might be out a little bit, but I think we'll get some further downside move.
Yeah, I'm predicting more downside as well. I think that one of the trade deals, whether it's the Canada-Mexico deal, Brexit, China, there'll be bad news in one of those fronts, and I think the market will have a really big sell-off on that. So that's my prediction from a non-professional. So that's what it's worth.
Well, they say if you keep predicting, eventually you'll get it right. So we're going to be right eventually. Okay. So, yeah, I totally agree with you. I think the market will be a little bit more bearish. And as I said, the closer it gets to the end of the month, I think the higher the probability comes. So right now I'm with you.
All right. Dale Gillham, everybody. Wealthwithin.us. You can also check out his book, Accelerate Your Wealth. It's your money, your choice. Dale, thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Jim.
Please remember that this report is an educational tool. While Wealth Within holds an Australian financial services license, the information featured in this program is general in nature and therefore should not be relied upon. Before making any investment decisions, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your investment decisions are appropriate for you. We hope that you enjoy this week's report.
Okay, as I said with Jim a little bit earlier in the report, we both sort of got it wrong with the market, and but as Jim said, I really kept saying the market was going sideways for quite a while, but I did think it would have started falling down into the low that I'm expecting already, and I think it needs to do that in the next couple of weeks, and if it doesn't, then we can confirm the low in December was the low, and it's going to go bullish, because it really is looking bullish, the Dow, and as I was saying with Jim, the actual noise in the marketplace is changing from being more doom and gloom and more bearish to, hey, we might get a deal on with the US-China trade deal. It's looking a lot more positive, and Brexit is happening. And so once the dust settles, what's going to be the thing holding the market back? And, unemployment is low. So there's a whole lot of positives going on in the US market now to suggest that the bull market, or the boat anchor that's holding it back for the last nearly 2 years, we're nearly at the end of, or over halfway through October, and the sideways movements happened since early January 2018, so we're only 2 months off doing that. So that whole slowing that market down, or slowing the momentum of the market down, might get released, and we cut the cord and it takes off and it rises quite well. But let's have a look at the chart. On the screen I've got a monthly chart on the Dow, because I really wanted to show you the bigger picture. Now I'll just drag it out a little bit so you can see it. Now I've done this grey line coming up from the 2007 low from the GFC, 2008 low, and just showing you how the market travels up and down and around that line, and when it moves faster away from it, it comes back down to it. Right now it's moved here, it's sort of moved away from it, it needs to come back to it. So if I look here, my prediction, what I was talking to Jim about, is saying it's got to come down below this sort of level, but I'm expecting down to this level, which really correlates with that grey line that I've got around 24.5 to 25,000 points roughly, is where I think the market will be heading. Now, this is interesting. We've had a lower, here's our all-time high back in July, 27,398. Here's a lower high of 27,306. This month currently, and you can see it's quite a lot of indecision whilst the close is holding up, Be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of weeks. If this keeps dropping away, then it will likely come right down to here. Now, it's not a huge issue if we look at our how far it might fall in percentage terms. There's 5%, there's 8%. Nothing really to be worried about. If you've got a portfolio, it's really not going to fall much, because whilst the market may fall 8%, your portfolio might fall 1 or 2%. It may even rise because you are not the market. The Dow is made up of 30 stocks. If you only got 5 and all those 5 are going up and the other 25 in the Dow are going down, the Dow's going to go down. So you are having got, sorry if I can say that correctly, you've got lower risk at this point in time, because I don't think the market is going to fall heavily. But looking at this, you can see I've done a longer one of those moves from the 87 low, and I've just picked up some of those peaks, like that prior peak in the GFC, that high there. And you can see here how in December it did come right down near to that line. And that's really what I'm sort of suggesting with that momentum. It could be, if we start to move up and we see this move up to make a new all-time high, that could suggest that's the low I was expecting, because it does fit some of the rules of that. That said, right now I think we need a bit of a correction, moving down to that sort of 2,500 points, and then moving up. And that's really what I'm suggesting the Dow will do. I do like some of the sectors in the Dow in terms of energy and healthcare. I think they're looking good. Both of those sectors have had not great years, and there's a couple of other stocks or other sectors that I do like. Materials is another one I like in the Dow. Now, I do still like FANG stocks, and I still do like technology, but that's being the biggest mover in this financial year, this calendar year, from 1 January. I think that's up over 30%, which is nearly double what the Dow's done. The Dow's done about 18%, I think, from memory. But really looking at the market, I think we need to look at what hasn't performed as well, because they'll start to play catch up. So let's go and have a look at some of those stocks which have performed poorly in the Dow over the last 12 months. Okay, so what I've got here is I've actually gone through and looked at my software, which is Optima, and I've looked at the stocks in the Dow, all of the Dow stocks over this year from 1 January to the current time, to the close last Friday, basically. And what we see here is the top stock in the Dow over the last 12 months was Apple. It was up 49.87%. Now, I've been saying for a long time, FANG stocks. I've been talking about that. Home Depot up 38.48, Visa up 33, Nike 29, United up 28, and Walmart up 27. Really, really good stocks here from there. But the other end of the scale, now we talked with Jim about consumer confidence being good. We've talked about consumer spending not being too much of an issue. Unemployment's at its low level, so everything's looking really, really good for the coming year, especially if Brexit happens and we also see a deal with China. I think there's some good things on the retail side. But Walgreens Boots, that's down 19% for the calendar year. Now, on your screen, you'll actually see a chart of Walgreens Boots, if I can say that correctly. It's not my Aussie accent here. But you can see here how it had an all-time high back in August 2015. So it's been falling for 4 years. Now, stocks, when they fall for 4 years, that's a long period of time. 4 to 5 years is really a long time for stocks to fall. And it would suggest that now starting to get high probability that it will rise up. And that's the thing, is the longer it falls, the more the probability slowly swings to it rising. The longer it rises, the more probability suggests it's going to peak to fall away. If I look at my little tool here, we can see here the fall from that high has been somewhere in the order of 50%. Again, that suggests to me that if it's going to find some support and start to move up, it will find some support around this sort of level and really move up nicely. And this is looking much better to me on the weekly chart. So this is where I'm suggesting some of these stocks could present some really good opportunities for you. If this stock breaks above this level, and I'll go and put a horizontal line on here so you can see what I'm talking about here. If price starts to break through this level and close above it on at least a weekly basis, if more preferably if a monthly basis, then I would suggest this would be a nice little for your portfolio from the medium to longer term. So it does look really, really nice. The next one I wanted to look at is Pfizer. Now, if I look at my Dow list again, now it says that Pfizer fell 16.47% so far this calendar year from 1 January, and you can see what I'm talking about here. Now I need to update my data on here because it's missing some data, and that'll pick up in a second now, but you can see Pfizer's been falling quite heavily when you look at this from this high here back in December 2018. If I look at this, you can see how it's fallen quite heavily down to, I've used the wrong tool. Let me get the other one that I want. Where are you? It's fallen quite heavily since there, falling 26.4. Currently, it's down about 21%, and you can see here's the whole history of Pfizer. It's a nice looking stock, but unlike the Dow, its all-time high was way back here in March. Let me bring that up so you can see it. Back in April 1999. And it's had a bit of a pullback here, whereas the Dow's been more sideways. And as I said, it's pulled back since December. Here, where the Dow's sort of been sideways and up. So it's shown weakness. This is starting to look like it's got some strength. But look at this movement here. If I put my cool little grey solid line on here, you can see here it's just coming back to those sorts of levels, isn't it? All that momentum that I was talking about a little bit earlier on the Dow, and so staying behind that line, it will come back up and move above it. So I do think this stock is looking much better, and on a weekly basis it does look good. It's getting better, but I would be waiting for it to break above this sort of high here, which is 37.76, before getting too excited about it. So do watch this stock. Next one I want to quickly talk about is 3M, and again, another stock that's been quite bearish. It was down, or has been down this year. 3M has been down 14.4%, down since January 2018, where the Dow's gone sideways. That's what we talked about. This is one stock that's going down, and it's showing a little bit of indecision here that it might be holding up. Not proving it yet, but it's looking like it. But I'd keep my eye on this stock over the coming months. It doesn't look as good as the previous two, Pfizer and Walgreens. So let's look at the next one, which is United Health Group. Now, health is one of those areas. Now, it's only down 1.52% for the year, so it's only a small move down, but it looks like it's found some support and had a big week last week when the market went sideways and didn't do anything. So this one had a really nice week. So keep an eye on this one. It is in that health sector, which I think is looking better. As I said, healthcare, energy, materials, I'm looking at that. Exxonmobil is one that is also one you should keep your eyes on as well. But let's get into the next one, which is Johnson & Johnson. And Johnson & Johnson, again, a little bit more sideways-ish, but not quite as bearish as the other two. But it had its high in December and really has gone down a little bit through here. It does look a little bit more bearish, so not quite what I would consider a great stock at this point in time, but hopefully it will pick up as we come. But again, bullish stock. But if the Dow does take off, I'd suggest this one will go with that, because it really hasn't done much over the last couple of years, and that's why I say it's down only 1.5%. Last one I wanted to look at is Exxonmobil, which I mentioned briefly a second ago. Looking at this monthly chart now, how big is this fall from that level there back in 2014? So if I put my pointer in, you can see July 2014. Now, ExxonMobil, if I look on my sheet, down 0.85% for the year. And it really has had this big move down. That low there is the lowest low it's had since that big high. And if I put my little tool on it, you'll see down to that low, it's 38.29%. So all we're looking for now is to find support. So if this thing does start to move up through here, that's still too early, but this could be one to watch, because I'm saying that energy does look a lot better. If this starts to find support and start moving up, then it could be a nice little early signal for you to enter into this in a nice medium-term trade. As I was saying earlier, stocks falling for 4 and 5 years, especially big stocks like these, is not necessarily something that happens all the time, and the longer it's doing it, the more it suggests it will start to move up. So it really does look a good stock to me, although it's still too early to enter. Don't jump in early just because you think it's cheap. Please stay out of stocks until they start to move up and give you a sign that it's moving up. So I've given you a couple of this time, a couple of the early ones and then a couple of later ones to put on a watch list. So, but for those of you who send in questions, I know we don't get a lot of questions on this US market report. For those of you who have sent in some questions, this report is for Australian stocks. Sorry, not Australian stocks, for US stocks. So please don't put Australian stocks on here. They can be put, all those questions can be put on my Australian report. So we did have a couple of questions on last week's US report that were for Australian stocks. you do need to put them on the Australian report. But do thank you for sending those questions in, and thanks for watching until the end of this video. Now, if you have any questions for me on US stocks or the US market, trading, investing, if you've got questions like that, please shoot them through. Put them down below there in that little box there, and to me, I'd love to answer those for you and help you understand the US market. So just stick them below, so I will answer them, and just get typing and you'll get your answer next week. Now remember that here on this channel we do these, I record these every Monday, every single week, and I also do a live stream on Tuesdays for Australia, but I am intending to do one for the US in the not too distant future. But if you do like seeing these reports and you do like what we talk about here, please hit that subscribe button and show your support for our channel. It really does help us. It helps me get out into the US and get more people, and therefore we can help a hell of a lot more people. So remember to click the bell on the right of it so you keep up to date and you know when we're uploading, when what we do upload goes live. But for now, thank you. I'm Dale Gillham. Goodbye, good luck, and good trading.